the pioneering orthopedic surgeon at UPMC, honored tonight with the Dapper Dan Sports Leadership Award. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Dr. Freddie Fu. And now we come to a very special part of the program, the presentation of the Dapper Dan Sports Leadership Award. Our recipient is not your typical Dapper Dan Award winner, but there is nothing typical about Dr. Freddie Fu. Watch this.
Freddie Fu was born in 1950 in Hong Kong, at a time when Pittsburgh was still known as the Smoky City. But the events that would bring Freddie Fu to Pittsburgh began when he attended Dartmouth College. There, the dean of Dartmouth's medical school, who was also a Pittsburgh native, suggested that Freddie apply to Pitt's medical school. And after completing his orthopedic residency, he joined the Pitt faculty as assistant professor. It was Dr. Fu's focus on the details and inquisitive nature that eventually led him to be one of the world's leading pioneers and advocates of anatomical anterior cruciate ligament reconstructive surgery. The path wasn't always smooth. Many surgeons were reluctant to learn new, more difficult, and more time-consuming ACL techniques. But the dramatic results could not be ignored, and Dr. Fu's work succeeded in changing ACL surgery forever. Dr. Fu also made quite a few fans in professional sports. Some of the best athletes in the world have turned to him for help in getting back in the game. And just as the athletes he treats have garnered impressive stats, Dr. Fu has quite a few himself. Dr. Fu has pioneered numerous innovative arthroscopic surgical techniques, performed cutting-edge research, authored major orthopedic textbooks, and produced videos on ACL techniques that have garnered over 200,000 views. He was also instrumental in creating the UPMC Center for Sports Medicine, one of the world's largest, most comprehensive clinical and research centers of its kind. It is a shining symbol of Pittsburgh's emergence as a leader in healthcare treatment and research. Dr. Fu loves Pittsburgh, and it shows. He is a tireless volunteer and community member, serving on a variety of charitable and performing arts boards, including Make-A-Wish, the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater, and the Children's Festival Chorus, just to name a few. Surgeon, ambassador, volunteer, mentor, pioneer, teacher, Pittsburgher. With so much already accomplished, it would be easy for Dr. Fu to slow down. But it's not just the star athletes that keep him going. It's the rewards of seeing his next patient's face when they realize they can continue to take part in their favorite activities or just enjoy life to the fullest.
Here to do the honors, the executive editor and vice president of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, David Shribman.
Well, thank you, Bill. Here's a definition of an easy job. Get the Pirates into the 2012 World Series. And here's the definition of a hard job. Introduce someone who needs no introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to introduce to you Freddie Fu. Now, have you ever heard of this guy? Pittsburgh's full of famous people you never see around here. Sidney Crosby, Todd Graham, a lot of people you never see. Freddie Fu is not one of those people. He's a big man on campus. Actually, I first heard of Freddie when we were on the same campus as undergraduates. Ordinarily, no one on campus talks about the ping pong champion. But at Dartmouth College in the 1970s, people were talking about the ping pong champion. It was some guy whose name rhymed with flu. Actually, Freddie was the second Fu at Dartmouth. The first was his brother. He liked the place, and Freddie told his father he also wanted to go to Dartmouth, all the way from Hong Kong to New Hampshire. His father was a very wise man. "Sure, Freddie," he said, "you can go to New Hampshire, as long as you promise never to play beer pong." Freddie Fu, campus pong champion. Now, there are lots of stories about Freddie, and some of them are true. You'll hear someone say that he actually understood a word that Freddie said. That story is not true. Freddie speaks English the way Larry Richard speaks French. Or as Hilda Fu once told me, he's equally inarticulate in both languages. Here is a story I know it's true. Freddie was in New York for the Big East tournament, say around 1991. Got snowed in, couldn't get a cab anywhere. People were cross-country skiing in Times Square. LaGuardia was closed, but Freddie had to get to Pittsburgh, and somehow in the Fu fashion, he got a cab to Newark, flew home, and as he was leaving, he tossed his LaGuardia ticket to one of his students, Dr. Paul Marks, and told him to fly home on his ticket. Now remember that this was 1991. No TSA, no IDs required to fly, so Dr. Marks, who looks about as Chinese as a plate of matzah, got in line in LaGuardia and told the gate agent he was here, he was Dr. Freddie Fu. The woman at US Airways didn't look up, she punched some keys and told him he was number 80 in line. But Dr. Marks, who's today the team doctor of the Toronto Raptors, demanded to speak to the manager of US Airways operations at LaGuardia. Now, immediately, the poor guy comes out, he's shaking. He asked Dr. Marks his name. Dr. Marks said, "I'm Freddie Fu." "How do you spell that, sir?" F-U. So he types F-U into the machine and bells started to ring, indicating the man in front of him, Dr. Freddie Fu, was a super elite platinum Presidential Club Chairman's preferred member. The guy turned the screen to Dr. Marks as he watched Dr. Freddie Fu's name go from number 80 to number 1 in a flash. In truth, Dr. Marks is one of many, many people who owe so much to Freddie Fu. One day I wrecked my wrist skiing. That day happened to be New Year's Eve. So I called Freddie at home around 7 the next morning, knowing he'd been up for at least 12 hours. "I'll be right over," he said. The man made a house call to my house at 7:30 on New Year's morning, which gets us from the company he keeps to the hours he keeps. He never sleeps. He's not that patient a guy. He moves at warp speed. He once called one of his residents at 3 in the morning with an idea for a research project. "Freddie," the guy said, "I'm going to see you in 3 hours. Can't it wait?" 2 weeks later, he asked the guy if the project were finished. "Freddie," the guy says, "we're going to need $100,000 in ethics approval. I'm going to be retired before this is done." Freddie does not take no for an answer, and he elevates everyone he works with. One of his fellows in the early 90s was a little bit unkempt. In fact, he was a total, horrifying, hopeless slob. Freddie is not a total, horrifying, hopeless slob. Of all the awards, even this one he's proud of, the one he's proudest of is being voted one of the 10 best dressed in Pittsburgh. Let's hope the other 9 never need an MRI. But anyway, at the end of this guy's training, Freddie takes him to his personal tailor and says, "When you get out of here, you represent me. You cannot look like a slob." Freddie bought him a whole wardrobe. Now let's talk about that wardrobe a little bit. Put on your sunglasses when he comes up because he has a tie that he didn't borrow from me. His sister Jeanette told me that Freddie was not only the first person in Hong Kong in 1970 to have a pink shirt, he was the only person in Hong Kong in 1970 to have a pink shirt. Then again, he may have been the first person his age to play the Spanish guitar in Hong Kong. He was only, to this date, the only person his age in Hong Kong ever to play the Spanish guitar. This is quite a family, the FUs. There's Hilda, who is Pittsburgh's sweetheart. There's his 2 kids, Joyce and Gordon, both of whom followed Freddie to Dartmouth. I was at Dartmouth for Joyce's graduation. I went into Freddie in the hall. He says to my wife, Cindy, and me, "If you want a special experience, go to the art gallery and see Joyce's senior project." It was 48 portraits of women's breasts. It's not the kind of art project you quickly forget. One of his brothers is a college provost in Hong Kong, one is a dentist in Vancouver, and Freddie himself, 10 pounds at birth. His mother's favorite. Freddie calls her almost every day. She's 90. One of the things Freddie told me that he's proudest of is having been with the Pittsburgh Passion since they started. But of course he was. Freddie is the Pittsburgh Passion. One of Freddie's associates told me he thinks of Freddie with the old line about Isaac Newton. "If I have seen far, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." Ladies and gentlemen, our giant stands 5'7", and he spells his name F-U.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave. I think I learned a little bit more about myself from the editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I think I'm really privileged for you to introduce me. I'd like to congratulate all those receiving awards here this evening. Penguins, Mark-Adrian Freddie, Coach Bausman, the Pittsburgh Passion, and of course, our very own homegrown Mike Dicker. The high school students, Luke Hagee, Madison Cable from Mount Lebanon, Mason Morgan from Chartiers Valley. I am honored to be in your company. I humbly accept this award, not for myself, but on behalf of UPMC and Pitt teams, as well as all the people in Pittsburgh who care about the health of the players. Now, we all heard the expression, keep your eyes on the ball. It could be a baseball, a soccer ball, or in the case of the Pens, a hockey puck. It could be for a cyclist, a bike, or a road for a runner. In sport medicine, we need to keep our eye on the patient. And as sport medicine physician, our top priority is the care and safety of the patient. And as my mentor, Dr. Albert Ferguson, told us, always do the right thing. I first got to know and love the Pittsburgh community by taking care of high school teams and weekend warriors. Then a partnership with UPMC and Pitt gave me the opportunity to get involved with Pittsburgh College and professional sports teams. The City of Pittsburgh Marathon from the very beginning, the cycling community, the Pittsburgh Passion from the very beginning, and the Pittsburgh Ballet since 1982, to name a few. Our workplace is a wonderful example of the reinvention of the new vision of Pittsburgh region, a unique alliance of college and professional sports team. The UPMC Sport Performance Complex on the south side is the home of the Pitt Panthers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. At the UPMC Center of Sport Medicine, for the first time, patient care, medical research, education, sport performance, rehabilitation, and concussion service are under one roof. In fact, we were the first center to incorporate clinical management of concussion long before it made national headlines. The cross-disciplines at the center benefit each other and are an example not only for the region, but also for the world. The center attracts local, national, and international patients. Hundreds of elite world-class commentators have been treated here. And the complex is used as a model in more than 10 countries and has a magnet of more than 600 visiting surgeons and fellows from over 50 countries and 6 continents. In fact, China uses it as a model for the Olympic Training Center. Now let's go back to 30 years. My journey took me as team doctor of Mount Lebanon High School. Back then, only a few teams have trainers and team doctors. In a game against Butler, Danny Welch, our running back, sustained a fractured femur while attempting to go airborne across the goal line. Believe it or not, I have to hold his deformed leg under the watchful eye of legendary coach Art Walker Sr., trainer Dick Jones, and a little ball boy, Art Walker Jr. right here, while waiting 30 minutes for ambulance to arrive. At first, we initiated training services at suburban schools, and then with the help of Andy Russell Foundation, we worked out an arrangement to have trainers and doctors at the inner city high schools also. Now trainers, doctors, and ambulances are the norm in all school events. Many of the high school players we have treated over the years have gone on to become solid citizens and leaders. For example, 82 Mount Lebanon graduate Mark Hart is the Director of Planning and Development for the Steelers. Pat Smith, a star running back also, class of 88, is now orthopedic surgeon. And Danny Welch, he attended Allegheny College and now is a successful banker in Philadelphia. And Pat Smith, Mark Hart, and Danny Welch are all here tonight over there, fifth table down. Now at Pitt, We have the privilege of working with many wonderful players in all sports. In the early 90s, we have a football player, very quiet guy who comes from Taylor Allardyce High School. This young man, his name is Curtis Martin. Had a great game his senior year against Texas. Rushed for 251 yards but hurt his ankle. At that time, a new test called the MRI revealed it was a more severe injury. And head trainer Rob Blank and I held out Curtis for the rest of the season. Keeping a player on the sideline is never very easy. But I think sitting out the rest of his senior year and having his ankle healed allowed him to have a very successful 11 years of playing in the NFL. This year, as many of you know, Curtis was elected into the class of 2011 Professional Football Hall of Fame. Our goal is always the safe return of the players to the sports, and I'm sure we all are very anxious for Sidney Crosby to get back on ice. Back in the 60s, football legendary coach Vince Lombardi said, "If winning isn't everything, why do we keep the score?" Coach Lombardi's score is different than our score here, which is more than just about winning or losing. He always said that it's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether how you get up. This was the thinking back then. As healthcare professions, we have a duty to make sure it is safe for the player to return. And the win at all costs philosophy needs to be challenged and re-examined for the betterment of lifelong health of our patients. Sports should be fun. I have a great time playing basketball and swimming at St. Paul Boys High School in Hong Kong. Our focus as sport medicine physician is what's best for the athletes now and when the playing days are over. I am honored and humbled to receive this award tonight from Dapper Charities. On behalf of the team of healthcare professions, I would like to thank my family, my friends, come as far as ways in San Francisco, the members of Dapper and Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and the Pitt and UPMC teams. I'm especially grateful to the wonderful people of Pittsburgh who accepted me and allowed me to grow. I am one of you. I'm one of you. Our pledge is to continue to take care of our patients, do the right thing, and keep our eye on the ball. Thank you so much.